That's another thing, is people think that their kids, if they don't have their kids getting their 10,000 hours of practice by the time they're 9, I've seen it over and over again. It doesn't matter. Like, what matters is having the passion. You can't manufacture a champion. You can't do it. That kid has to have that passion.
Welcome to the Mountain Tough Podcast, brought to you by Sig Sauer. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mountain Tough Podcast. We are so glad that you are here, and we love seeing you come back week after week for these episodes. It is our goal to bring you a special, inspiring, motivating guest every time, every episode, to help you sharpen your mindset, sharpen your mental toughness, put some mindset tools in your toolbox so that you can overcome adversity and live that always ready, virtuous, abundant life. Thanks for being here, and thanks for making us one of the top mindset, mental toughness podcasts in the country. If you are a new listener or a loyal listener and have a second to leave us a rating or review on the podcast store of your choice, those do mean the world to us. They mean a ton to me and the Mountain Tough team. We love seeing your guys' feedback come through. We are big believers in iron sharpens iron. So we love seeing your feedback, your guest recommendations, and the rankings and reviews do allow these episodes to get out to more people, to transform more lives. So if you have a second to do that, that would be phenomenal. Switching over to current events at Mountain Tough, there has been a lot of work going on this season in the lab. And what I wanted to make sure you knew about was the all-new preseason prep program for hunters that are 50 years old and older. So the preseason prep for 50 years plus is a big, big deal. We've been requested for this program to be created for several years. There is an abundant amount of hunters, backcountry hunters, that are 50, 55, 60, 65, and they were looking for a unique program more focused on mobility, stability, pliability, and a lot of the creation of this program came from Randy Newberg. Randy works across the street from the Mountain Tough Lab. He came over one day and he was like, look, I am a little bit out of shape. I got some injuries and I have the biggest hunt of my life coming up this August. Can you guys train me for an August Mackenzie Mountains Doll Sheep hunt? We said yes. We started training one-on-one Randy every day. And what we realized is we need to train him slightly differently than how we would work with him in like preseason prep 2.0. Most of the principles are the same, but human performance-wise, there was some tweaks we had to make with Randy's injuries. He hadn't been in the gym since high school. He's fit because he'd been rucking and hiking and hunting, but he hadn't done gym-based training since high school. So we made some modifications, and we realized we need to release this to the public. It's a program for athletes, hunters, anyone that wants a high degree of functional fitness and mobility that is 50 years or older. So make sure you check that out. It is in the Mountain Tough app. It's going live right around the same time as this podcast today. So it is either up or will be up in the next day or so. So check that out. It's a phenomenal option if you're hunting this year. And if you are hunting this year, you need to start that program soon. Switching over to the app, I want to also make sure you know that as a podcast listener, we do have an exclusive podcast code. So if you've never checked out Mountain Tough Plus, the app that is available on iPhone, iOS, all your smart TV streaming platforms, so Roku, Apple TV, Amazon, the Mountain Tough app, as a podcast listener, you do get 6 weeks for free. So this is a huge, huge deal. 6 weeks of free training on Mountain Tough Plus. That 6-week code is going to unlock the app, all of our physical programming, All of the minimal gear, at home, intermediate, beginner, elite level programming is there. The subscription unlocks everything. Additionally, you're going to be able to dive into our mindset content for 6 weeks, our mental toughness content, our spiritual content, and our nutritional content. So this subscription, like always, unlocks everything that Mountain Tough offers. And as a podcast listener, as a special guest of this show, you do get 6 weeks for free. So that's a big deal. You can finish a lot of our programs in 6 weeks. Make a decision there if you want to continue your subscription. That code for your 6 weeks free as a Mountain Tough podcast listener is Mountain Pod. That is MTNPOD, all caps, all one word. So just go to mountaintough.com and check out with the code Mountain Pod for 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough Plus app. Now, very special announcement around today's guest. Today is a big show in the Mountain Tough studio. On the show today, we have Jocko Willink. Now, Jocko, most of you know, he does not need an introduction. He is a phenomenal human being. He is pushing a lot of men to pursue a great life. He's pushing that discipline, a retired Navy SEAL. I know you guys know his story. If you don't, Jocko, a retired U.S. Navy SEAL officer, co-author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. He's written several other books. In addition, he's written books for kids, mental toughness for kids. He has a leadership business called Echelon Front, and he owns and runs and operates a phenomenal Jiu-Jitsu gym in San Diego called Victory MMA. But more importantly, his main purpose in life is helping other people, and he does that every day in the content he's kicking out, his podcast that he's producing at a world-class level. He is an intense, motivating human, but he's also a great person with a golden heart for helping others. We dive into a 2-part conversation today. We spend a lot of time talking about what bow hunting means to Jocko. An awesome conversation on his newfound bow hunting passion. He's only been bow hunting for 4 or 5 years, and we unpack what that means to him, what that is teaching him. A lot of gold nuggets there. And then we finish out today's episode diving into fatherhood. How do we become, how do we be, how do we lead our families as fathers? A phenomenal conversation with Jocko. This is one you're going to want to save. This is one you're going to want to share with your friends. Certainly, you're going to want to share this with other fathers in your life. So stand by for my conversation with Jocko. You've been even like a corner man at the UFC before with some athletes?
Yeah, that's where I went to most of them. Most of them I was working, most of them I was working, but even when you're working, if your person fights, I never had like the main event. I was never cornered anyone on the main event, but you're fighting earlier in the night, you get to watch all the fights, and it's still really cool to see. And you have the ultimate backstage pass because you have the cornerman pass, so you can just walk around. And a lot of the really good seats, the rich people don't show up until like the main event, so you can just go sit in really good seats and watch the fight, and it's pretty awesome.
That's incredible. I was really impressed with the energy in the room, the fans. I mean, the energy is insane.
Yeah, going to a UFC certainly is a next level experience compared to watching on TV. And look, watching on TV, sure, you're going to get better angles of the fights, you're going to see more, but the hype at a UFC live is undeniable.
Yeah, undeniable. That, like, some of the guys were talking about, it's better than the Super Bowl. I mean, the energy, you can just feel the crowd in your chest at different moments. It's incredible.
Yeah, I've never been to a Super Bowl, but I've been to some UFCs, and I've been to a lot of UFCs, and the hype there is, like I said, it's undeniable.
That Holloway knockout, with Gaethje was nuts.
Yeah, that was a crazy knockout. And that's the kind of knockout that that's going to leave a mark. Like that's real damage, so it's rough to watch. And that's fighting.
Yeah.
Gaethje's nothing but game, and so is Holloway. And I worked with Holloway years ago. I trained a fighter named Jeremy Stevens, and he had a fight against Anthony Pettis, and we wanted to get someone that had Anthony Pettis's very unique striking style, someone that could mimic that. And we brought in this young, like 18-year-old kid, unknown kid from Hawaii. His name was Max Holloway, and he was just a really hard worker. It wasn't even his camp, and he was trying to win every sprint, every round he's sparring. He was just if I could have invested in him back then, I absolutely would have. His attitude was outstanding.
Man, watching him too is like watching a sniper. He was like waiting all 5 rounds for one mistake.
Yep. He's a killer. And Gaethje's just an outstanding fighter as well. So awesome fights.
Yeah, I saw that they were calling it potentially like the greatest knockout in UFC history. Do you think it's close?
There's a lot of really great knockouts. I don't know if that one is particularly the greatest, but it's definitely up there in one that, will be it. That knockout will be in the highlight reels of the UFC forever, for sure.
Yeah, he was down there was no movement for a couple minutes on the ground.
Yep. It's rough. It's rough.
After you take a hit like that, do you need to not get struck in the head for a year, a half a year? I mean, how's he going to approach his training?
They should really, after that knockout, I don't know what his specific concussion protocol is going to be, but he should not be, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not doing any contact at all for the next 6 months. I know I got knocked out and got a really bad concussion training, and the doctor told me like no sparring for 6 months. And, I waited 6 weeks like an idiot because I was young and stupid, but that's how you get messed up. So hopefully they take it serious and he takes some serious time off and lets himself heal up. The thing is, and this is pretty well documented, if you get knocked out, it's now easier for you to get knocked out. You don't get tougher. This isn't like putting a ruck on.
Yeah.
You put a ruck on and you hump that ruck for time, you're going to get more resilient and feel better and get stronger with the ruck. It doesn't work like that with your brain. You don't get conditioned to getting punched in the head. It only gets worse. You only can take so many hits over time. And also people are different. Some people they're just hard-headed and they'll be okay. And some people, they just have a little bit of a weakness where over time it really impacts them in a negative way. And you could see that the examples I always think of is George Foreman versus Muhammad Ali. I mean,
Yeah.
George Foreman certainly took massive head trauma during his career, and he still was he's relatively good to go. And, we all saw the deterioration of Muhammad Ali, towards the end of his life. And so those are two people that were both heavyweight fighters. They both took a lot of damage, and one of them, the damage had less impact over time. So just like some people will have, spine problems, and some people will have, skin problems, and some people will have, heart problems. Like two people that are both marathoners, one of them can have serious heart issues and the other one can be perfectly fine. And they're both training hard, but there's just that genetic component that you have to account for.
Yeah. And those TBIs nowadays that are so scary too, just with the brain not healing, having those later in life effects, not only the mental cognitive function, but the depression, the suicidal thoughts, that stuff catches people off guard all the time.
Yeah, it's very disturbing. And the type of, when I was in the military, you're getting exposed to that stuff, even in the 90s when there was no war going on. We're setting off charges. We've got breaches going off. We're throwing crashes into rooms and being in those rooms, getting crashed, all those things. Those are all, just going out and shooting a Carl Gustav, nowadays they limit exposure to firing a Carl Gustav. I don't know what the exact number is, but you can't be around more than 3 a day or something. I don't know what the numbers are.
Yeah.
When I was a young SEAL and I was the range safety officer and the other guys that were range safety officers, we'd go out there and eat 30 of those Carl G rockets in a day, or law rockets, or whatever, AT4s, whatever the weapon was. We'd go out there and just RSO, and you're getting your bell rung every time, and that's your job, and you do it. So they're definitely being more proactive in keeping guys' exposures mitigated as much as they can.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, the more we learn, the better we get, which is awesome. You even see that just on the human performance side, the innovation like of those fighters was definitely something that caught my eye too, and you see it in the NFL, you see it everywhere. Athletes now versus 20 years ago, all these innovations stacking on top of each other. I mean, the human performance levels that we're at today are incredible, and it still kind of feels like we're kind of just scratching the surface on a few things.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The knowledge and information that we have now compared to what we had 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago, it's radically different, and yes, radically improved.
So like someone like Gaethje and Holloway at that level, are they training multiple times a day, like a 2-hour session in the morning, 2 hours midday, 2 hours afternoon? Is their full-time life training for that fight?
Oh yeah, definitely. But one thing that's interesting is Max Holloway doesn't spar anymore. So he's one of these, and there's a whole camp, and it's pretty prevalent now, of people that they're not sparring because they recognize that even all those light punches that you take sparring, they add up over time. And so when I don't say they don't spar at all, but they very, very much minimize the amount of sparring that they do. And they focus on their timing and their technique as opposed to actually sparring all the time. So then you get someone like Sean Strickland, and Sean Strickland, he spars, 5-6 days a week. And that's just how he lives his life. So there's definitely different camps there. But I would say one of the biggest evolutions is some fighters sparring less, a lot less than what we used to. When I trained fighters back in the day, we would just spar. We would spar sometimes with just MMA gloves. We wouldn't even use boxing gloves. We would just spar like an MMA fight, like 5 rounds. We're going to spar. We're going to fight. You've got to fight in 4 weeks. Cool. We're going to spar 5 rounds today, you against me. And that's what we would do. And we did that a lot. And look, do you take a little bit off of your striking? Sure. Of course you do. But you're still like getting occasionally people getting knocked out. You're definitely getting your bell rung. You're definitely getting sat down sometimes where you're going to have a headache. So I think right now, one of the most interesting advancements in training for MMA is actually less sparring. And that's been pretty prevalent. But then again, like I said, there's guys like Sean Strickland, who's out there all the time. He spars 5-6 days a week.
Just depends. Yeah, it depends on the athlete. And your martial arts trajectory in life started a little bit later, like in your 20s. I know that you kind of went in and rolled with Dean Lister and kind of got hooked since then.
Well, yeah, I was actually a SEAL Master Chief. I was on my first deployment, and the SEAL Master Chief was the equivalent of a white belt in jiu-jitsu. He had very limited skills for 1992, 1993, but in 1992, 1993, if you knew any jiu-jitsu, you were just going to dominate. And so this old Master Chief, and great guy, I mean, I still know him, but this old Master Chief, he brought 4 or 5 of us into the judo training facility on this Navy base and just rolled us up, choked us out, tapped us out. And that was my introduction to, there's a superpower. There's a magic power, because there's no way that here I was 21 years old and, fresh out of SEAL training, 200 pounds, I should be able to destroy this 40-year-old old man,
Yeah.
Master Chief, and he just, and same, all the guys, he just tore through us. It was no factor, and that's because jujitsu is a technique that if you don't understand that technique, you're just gonna get annihilated. So that happened. I trained for a while there, and I kind of got the basics of jujitsu down. Which again, in the early '90s, this is pre UFC.
Yeah.
So if you did jujitsu, you were just going to win. Like you were going to win any interaction that you got in because the other person literally did not know what to do. And so I was like that for a few more years. And then, yeah, my friend who was actually originally part of that group, another SEAL, a guy named Jeff Higgs, when we had got back off that deployment, he sought out and found jujitsu and started training all the time. And so fast forward like a year and a half, 2 years, he comes over to my house and he says, "Hey, you want to train?" And I said, "Sure." And again, I was a lot bigger and stronger than he was. And we went out across the street into the park on the grass, and he just tapped me out a bunch of times. I said, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And he said, "I'm training jiu-jitsu every day." And I said, "Where?" He gave me the address. I was there the next day. And yeah, that's when I met Dean Lister. And that's when I really got obsessed with training jiu-jitsu. I did it every single day, a couple times a day. And I did it for until right now.
Man, that's incredible. It is incredible how it is a superpower. I have very limited experience in jiu-jitsu at all. I dabbled in it once, but I remember going, a big group of us went as, white belts and beginners, and there was a older brown belt there. He's a legendary guy in Bozeman. His name's Art Hoffman, and he at that time was probably like 55 and we were all like 32, 33, and he's like 160 pounds. We were all like 180, 190, and he just annihilated all of us. I remember getting home and talking to my wife, and I was like, I felt like I was a 7-year-old girl fighting this guy, and he's a 55-year-old man. There's just nothing you could do to him.
Yeah, that's the jujitsu. It's an amazing thing, and I encourage people to get into it all the time because it's a skill set that if you're a human and you're going to interact with other humans, there's always a possibility of some kind of altercation taking place. And if you know jujitsu, you can handle it yourself, and you can usually, hopefully, avoid the altercation. But in the event that you can't, you'll be able to handle it.
And you went all in. After your military career, you bought, owned, and operated a jiu-jitsu academy, correct?
Yeah, still have a big MMA gym here in San Diego. We got jiu-jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai, wrestling. We've had it since 2007. Yeah, so it's an awesome place.
What do you recommend for people that, like us in Montana, we're kind of rural, Bozeman's bigger, so there's some studios here, there's some dojos here, but so many people live kind of out in the boonies in these small towns, kind of all over the Rocky Mountain West. What do you recommend for those guys to get into some sort of martial arts?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there are places when I look up in the mountains and I'm looking at different areas. I mean, Bozeman has a couple options. I think Clone Gracie has a place there, and then you've got Straight Blast Gym, right there. Those are two options. You're set.
Yeah.
You're set if you would live within, a half an hour of Bozeman, you're good to go. And usually there's places like that. Pretty much if there's any population center, there's going to be some kind of jiu-jitsu currently. Now, if there's not any jiu-jitsu at all, and you're right, there are definitely people that live in remote areas or towns where they just haven't got it yet. Look, you can get a couple mats and you can go. There's a bunch of really good online training programs, and you do those online training programs. One of the hardest things about jiu-jitsu is you do need to have a friend. You have to, you can always work out. You and I both know you don't need anything to work out. All you need is gravity in the floor, and you can crush yourself and you can be in awesome physical condition. But you cannot do jiu-jitsu without another human. So you need to have at least one friend that's willing to get on the mat with you and train. But there's all kinds of instructionals. There's all kinds of websites. YouTube is free, and you can get all kinds of information from there. Even if there's a place that doesn't have any jiu-jitsu, they might have some kind of wrestling. some kind of, maybe they have judo, but a lot of times in these remote areas, they at least have wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can get some skills, you can get some bodies to roll with wrestling, and you can learn. So you can definitely learn jujitsu no matter where you are right now, as long as you have one other human being that's interested in it, you'll be okay.
Awesome. Yeah. I love it. I know there's some guys meeting up in garages with mats and stuff like that. Well, Jock, I want to shift gears and I want to chat with you for a while about hunting, because I know that is a newer thing for you, bow hunting being a newer thing. I kind of wanted to unpack that and see what your experience has been there. I know you've been out bow hunting over the last few years with Dudley and some of the other guys, but what has bow hunting meant to you now that you've had the chance to go out on a few trips?
Well, first of all, I'm probably the luckiest guy in the world if you look at it from a perspective of bow hunting, right? If you just take my experience with bow hunting, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I had basically John Dudley saw me on Joe Rogan and thought that I might like bow hunting. And John Dudley, I met him. We randomly ran into each other in an airport, and I didn't really know who he was. You know, he said, "Hey, I'm a friend of Joe Rogan's," and he took a picture. He sent it to Rogan, and we kind of linked up, and then we connected on text. And he said, "Hey, I think you'd really like archery and bow hunting. I want to make you a bow and teach you how to shoot it." And I said, "Okay, awesome." And that's exactly what happened. John Dudley built me a bow, came to San Diego, and actually we went and saw Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was playing a big, comedy show or whatever it's called, a comedy concert. What do you call those?
Tour.
Comedy show?
Yeah.
He did that, one of those in San Diego. So, and that's what Dudley did. He came out, he brought me a bow and then taught me how to shoot it. And then, fast forward, I ended up being able to hunt with him, hunt with Rogan, hunt with Cam, and just have had a ridiculously awesome luck. And yeah.
Man, that isn't very lucky. You're very blessed from that perspective to be introduced to hunting from those guys. And so going out into I think your first hunt was like in northern Utah, something like that, going out with those guys.
Yep.
Elk bugling, elk screaming. What was the experience like for you?
Yeah, it was awesome. And as soon as I started archery, and I'll tell you honestly, one of the first things that I really liked about it was that it's quiet. And I spent so much of my life shooting guns, and just the shock waves and the repercussions of guns and having to put ear pro on and all, the fact that you could just do this quietly, almost instantly, that was the first thing I noticed. I was saying to myself, "Oh, this is so nice to not have to feel a little shocked, to not have to put ear pro on." Just all that I thought was awesome. And you could do it in your yard and didn't have to worry about anything. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was great. And then the other thing is there's a lot of transferable skills that you take from, when my job in the military transferred very well over to over to hunting. So everything from, of course, shooting, because the principles of shooting, whether you're shooting a bow or whether you're shooting a pistol or whether you're shooting a rifle, the principles are very, very similar. And so instantly, sort of, oh, okay, I understand the translation here. And it's a pretty direct translation from what you did in the military to what you do in hunting. So that was awesome to be able to have that. And the other thing I liked about it was, okay, now I've got a very specific mission. It's a very specific mission that you're getting dialed in for, right? That you're going to get a chance, or you hope you're going to get a chance. It's going to take work to get there, but you're going to get a chance, an opportunity. It's going to be fleeting, and you're going to have to make a shot under a lot of pressure, and you got to be prepared for it. So having that is, I think, anybody, if you're doing jiu-jitsu and you are going to compete in 4 months, it changes your focus. Now you're pushing harder. You're working on very specific things. You're dialing in your areas of weakness. You're honing your strengths. And so hunting, I felt the same thing. Okay, well, I need to make sure I get my reps in. I need to make sure I'm ready to run up a hill and take a shot when I might be a little bit out of breath. So it's just having a nice focus on what you're looking for, and having a mission like that, I think is very beneficial. And I think that's why you see a lot of veterans that are getting into it, because they're used to training for a specific mission, and now you get to train for a very specific mission. It's a very specific mission, and you get to train for it. And there's a high reward to the hard work,
Yeah.
Hope, because there's also, it's also, there's no guarantee in hunting. There's no guarantee in hunting. And that's one of the wildest things about it, is the outcome is, by no stretch of the imagination, is that outcome guaranteed at all. And, I've anybody that hunts understands that.
Especially bow hunting too.
Yeah. Especially bow hunting. And that's I guess what makes it so rewarding when you finally, get that shot, and you get a good shot, and you hear that bull go down. That's definitely it's weird too. That's one thing I found surprising about bow hunting is you don't get any, at least for me, I take a shot, I get no relief whatsoever. I feel no joy, or I don't feel anything when I take the shot, because you still don't know until you walk up on that bull.
Yep.
Don't know if you got that bull. And that's a tough lesson.
It's tough.
But I mean, I've taken shots where my guide was just so pumped, and my expression is just of, we'll find out.
Yeah.
Like, we'll find out. Felt good. We'll find out. And that's really, it's definitely a roller coaster for sure.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take a second and talk to you about nutrition and supplementation. There are a plethora of options when it comes to supplements that can be kind of overwhelming, so I wanted to let you guys know what I do take. So in the mornings, I am taking the Mountain Ops greens and the collagen right when I wake up, and that has been a game changer. I don't eat a lot of vegetables throughout the day, so adding those greens in the morning is quick and efficient, and I can really feel the collagen. In addition, I do enhance my workouts. My Mountain Tough training sessions are quite difficult, and so I do like to take the Enduro. It gives you a cardio enhancement that you can actually feel. And then I also like a little caffeine with my workout, so I'm taking the Mountain Ops Ignite. Lastly, it's really important that you are getting enough protein and recovering after these difficult sessions. What I do know is, even following a strict whole foods diet, I'm not getting nearly enough protein on most days unless I take a supplement. So I do take the Mountain Ops protein after my workout to make sure that I'm hitting about 1 gram per body weight for a functional athlete. So taking the Mountain Ops protein with some creatine after my workouts has been huge. Those are the products I am taking and that I recommend. The Mountain Ops team is giving Mountain Tough Podcast show listeners an exclusive discount to their products. It is a great deal. So for a first-time purchase on mountainops.com, you do get 20% off. All you need to do is go to mountainops.com and then use the code MountainTough at checkout. That's MTNTOUGH, all caps, all one word. Apply that as your promo code at checkout, and you're going to get 20% off your first order. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. With archery elk hunting, it is like the stars have to align. Everything has to come together so perfectly to even allow that shot to be possible. I mean, you have bulls coming in, cows coming in. None of them can see you draw. You got to get past the draw, and then you need to have no branches in the way, no limbs in the way. You need the perfect angle. It's like the stars align, and then you still take that shot, and there's still is a whole other component because elk are so tough. A little high is going to have some problems. A little low is going to have some problems. I mean, it's a really technical thing for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a very technical thing. And like I said, even when I take the shot, I still feel no satisfaction or happiness at all until I walk up on that bull. It's just very, very difficult. And I've hit bulls and tracked them for I guess the longest I've tracked is 24 hours. And at the end of that, you finally get that bull. It's like, yeah, we found it, but what were the chances that we wouldn't have found it? Yeah, it's just a tough game, man. It's a tough freaking game. And going to camp where there's really good hunters, and hearing really good hunters not recover bulls.
Yeah.
You think to yourself, how is that even possible? That's how hard it is. It's so hard that people that are incredible world-class hunters take shots and don't recover bulls. That happens.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a tough game. It's a tough game.
Do you find do you find that you like it because it is so tough? It's a big battle. It's a big challenge, but that's also part of what makes it so great.
100%. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even when I think about with the bow, yeah, it's like you already pointed out, getting into position, drawing the bow back, like all these things that you have to do, and you have to do it, 40, 50 yards away?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing it. Like, that is so hard to do. And if you could do that at a further distance, then it's just infinitely more possible.
Mm-hmm.
When you have to get to 30, 40, 50 yards, it's tough. And I think I've killed 3 bull at 50 yards and 1 at like 23.
Man.
And yeah, and I mean, every one of them, it's just like one little change in the situation and everything goes sideways.
Oh, for sure.
And then I went and hunted whitetail this year, and it's just a totally different game.
Mm-hmm.
You're ambushing them, right? You're waiting for them to walk in. You're not actively hunting them. You're ambushing them. And you can do that obviously with elk too, but you're certainly, it seems like with whitetail, you're waiting for them to come into your area.
Yeah.
Whereas with elk, you can do that as well with elk, but much of elk hunting is you got to go get them.
You're going. Yeah. Yeah. The physical demands, of pushing after bugling elk can get pretty awesome at times.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. This past year, I didn't kill an elk, but one of the situations I was in, I was literally running up a hill, hiding behind trees, and there was a big bull elk raking, and I probably got 15 yards away and was behind a tree, started to draw back, and he just looked up and took off. But I would have been taking a shot after running probably 300 yards up I don't know how many degree, but a very, very steep hill.
Just heart rate's jacked.
Yeah. Heart rate was jacked. And that's what we train for, right? That's what we're doing. That's why we're doing hill sprints.
Mm-hmm.
because we know we might be in that situation. You're not going to have time to take your breath. Unfortunately, I didn't even have time to draw on that one. As soon as I started to draw it, he like took off. But yeah, that's what you got to be ready for. You got to be ready for, I'm going to sprint 300 yards up a hill, draw and shoot within seconds. And you got to make that shot. It's definitely challenging.
Yeah, it's awesome. I remember a big bull I chased down one time. He was bugling, screaming, pushing a bunch of cows, and he was a really nice, like 350 class bull. And I was able to drop in this same drainage he was in and get up next to like a 30-foot cliff wall. And so the cliff wall was on my back and he was coming below me. So I knew there was nowhere else he could go but right by me. And he came right by, but he was so close, I was going to have some real problems drawing my bow. And so I remember having to wait for his eyeball to go behind a tree. And I was like, as soon as his eyeball goes behind one of these pine trees, I could draw. And there's no way this thing's getting out of here. It's like 23 yards. So I watched the eyeball go behind the tree, draw like a calm, smoothly, and he still saw me and just jetted out of there. Like, they have that extra layer of senses. It's crazy.
It is a tough game to play, that's for sure.
Do you find, especially that first time you went out, that very first year, that adrenaline of them like bugling in your face at 40 or 50 yards, did you find it like giving you the shakes at full draw?
Oddly enough, I feel very detached when I'm hunting. And actually this year, when I shot that whitetail, was the first time I had a camera guy with me that was filming me. And well, it wasn't even him filming me. There was a GoPro. And so I got to see what I look like when all the adrenaline's pumping and all that stuff. And I looked like I was, brushing my teeth, just
Really?
almost no emotions whatsoever. Very flat. I mean, my face was just totally dead. And yeah, so I think I go into a mode of almost a very, very detached mode where I'm just going through the shooting protocol. I'm just looking at my sight, making sure my peep sight's there, looking at my pin, putting it there on the spot, and then just going through the shot protocol. And that's what I'm doing. I think I kind of remove all the mayhem from my process. And that's, yeah, I call it detachment. You do the same thing in a gunfight.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a step back, make sure I'm not panicking, make sure I'm looking around. And so I have that very similar thought of, okay, yep, here I'm going to go through the protocol. And it's a very mechanical thing. And, like I said, I got to see myself doing that this year. And it was very, even after the shot, and his shot looked like, again, shot looked great, but there's literally no celebration at all. Just me, okay, let's give it a few minutes and go check for blood. So, and I have had that. That's kind of the way I felt on in all these situations, just very detached and unemotional is kind of how I feel.
Yeah, probably due to a lot of your military training and just all those reps.
Yeah, the reps. Actually, the last bull I shot in Utah, he was walking down. My guide was doing a great job hauling him in. He pulled him away from the herd, and he starts walking down to see what he's hearing. And he's walking down, and I'm ranging him. He's at 87. He's at 76. He's at 68. Back out to 82. And then he disappears in some trees, walks, and then he steps out. And when he steps out, I range him, and it's 50.0. And I'm thinking of all the times on the range where I'm dialing 50.0, and I'm just like, yep, this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
And just dialed to 50. I was behind a tree, dialed to 50, drew back, stepped out from behind the tree, and just, again, there's not really any huge thoughts going through my mind. The only thing I'm thinking is like, you know, where's your peep sight?
Yeah.
You know, how does Bubba look? Yep, Bubba looks good. You know, stand proud. You know, it's kind of like my thing is just like, you know, nice, good form. You know, going through this is all stuff, you know, like Dudley taught me how to do this stuff. Dudley taught me the protocol, and I just try and stick with the protocol.
Love it. That's awesome. I talk a lot about on this show specifically, there are so many men in the country, men and women, but if we focus on men for a second, that are struggling with complacency, passivity, mediocrity, anxiety, depression. There's a lot of guys out there struggling, and we know that like fitness is going to help them with that. Doing some hard things in the gym is going to help. Jiu-Jitsu is going to help. Martial arts are going to help. But one thing we talk about a lot is there is a unique thing going on in hunting that can make some significant differences. One is, you probably experienced this on many of your trips, especially the elk trips, is a lot of times, many times on those trips, there's no cell phone service, or it's very limited. So you're getting no texts, no emails. And one of the best things for anyone who's struggling to do is just go spend 4 or 5 days in the backcountry without your phone. You don't even have to hunt, just start with the backcountry. But hunting starts stacking all these positive things on top of each other, because you have fitness, like you got to do some work to chase elk, and then you have vitamin D, you got the outdoors, you got the scenery, you got, you know, the beauty of creation. Your phone's not working great or at all. You got good buddies that you're hunting with. So then that's stacking. And then the cool thing, especially with bow hunting, it happens with rifle hunting as well, but with archery, if it's the same analogy used of the jiu-jitsu fight coming up, if you have a Colorado elk hunt coming up in September, that Spartan effect starts happening where it's like, well, I got to shoot my bow every day. I got to be ready. And shooting your bow and working out every day to get ready for a hunt that's 7 months away, that creates a whole bunch of life change on its own before the hunt has ever happened. So are you seeing the same things? Are you seeing the same things with bow hunting, that it can really be a great catalyst for someone to kind of start changing their life trajectory?
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, whether you're getting ready for a jiu-jitsu competition, or you're getting ready to run a marathon, or you're getting ready to go bow hunting, you have to prepare. And it focuses your preparation so much when you know that, I mean, look, you're lucky to be able to get this hunt. You're lucky to be able to get a hunt, to go hunt an elk. You're very, very, very fortunate if you've got that opportunity. And so you got to prepare for it. And yeah, that means, you know, what is it at that moment in that particular hunt? What moment of preparation is the one that you're going to need? You don't know. You know, taking high angle shots, right? Taking high angle shots, you know, what does that look like? Have you prepared for that? Because that might be what you need. Taking some small window shot where you've got a very small window that you've got to shoot through, and you got to understand the trajectory of your arrow. Is that the component of training that you needed? Is it just the component of you ran 300 yards up a hill and now you've got to get your breath under control and get a shot off? Is that the component of training? Is it that you're going to get one shot and it's going to be at 84 yards?
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be the component? Is it going to be the component that you're going to take a shot at 10 yards, but it's a frontal shot that you didn't prepare for? So which one of these components is it going to be that you needed at the moment of truth? And actually, the frontal shot, when I talked about that story about running up that hill, I got up to the top of that hill. As I was drawing back, that was going to be a frontal shot at like probably 15 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't done enough thought about that frontal shot, because what do we hear about frontal shots all the time? Well, at least for me, hey, don't take them, like avoid them, don't take them.
Risky.
And I always had that attitude, like, hey, if it's a frontal shot, you know, it's too small, it's too tight of a shot, it's too easy to miss. And so I never really thought about it. What I didn't think about is if I'm at 13 yards or 15 yards, like I can drill something. And so you've got to know exactly where you're going to shoot. So like I said, I didn't get to draw, but when I went back that night, I was like, okay, let me reconfirm
what to
exactly where I'm shooting if I get one of these frontal shots. So that's now part of my preparation. Okay. We all sit there and look at that broadside elk quartering away, quartering to, you know, we look at it from every single possible angle to know where we're going to aim. And I did that for however many years, 4 years of doing that. And I always thought frontal shot, no, I'm not, I'll wait, I'll wait. But that might be the shot that you need to take.
Yeah.
So, and especially if it's that close, if it's that close, it's like, okay, I can definitely nail something very accurately at 15 yards.
Yeah.
So I need to be prepared for that. So that was, again, it's one of those lessons learned where you look at everything that happens and you need to be prepared for every possible outcome. And that's what the training focuses you on, is trying to cover as many variables as you can so you're prepared for whatever minute opportunity presents itself. Will you be ready for it? And, I'm sure someone will say, because I mentioned, you might have a shot at 84 yards, and we all know that's not a good shot to take. But if you wound an animal because you screwed up a shot at 30 yards and now you've got another opportunity when it stops at 84 yards, you better be able to take that shot and be prepared to make that happen. So, yes, absolutely. Having the hunt on the calendar will get you focused to train for all possible outcomes that you might come into.
Yeah, I love that so much, because if you have like a 45-year-old working professional American man that is struggling with some discipline, and he's not gonna, let's say he's not gonna go down like the martial arts road, just by him committing to this mission of bow hunting is extremely valuable, because of everything you just mentioned. There's a lot to train for, a lot to get ready for. And to do that, his schedule now needs to shift. He needs more time in his day to train. He's got to wake up early, or he's got to be more efficient with his time. And then, his family's seeing him train. His family's maybe shooting archery with him. So all these really awesome elements start happening.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Having a goal and having a mission is going to get you focused. And certainly bow hunting is an outstanding representation of a solid mission that's going to be very, very challenging. The success is not remotely guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I think what the average for someone that goes on an elk hunt is, it takes 9 years. 1 out of 9 years is what I've heard it takes for a normal person to go out and make this happen. So you're really going to train and plan and prepare and train and plan and prepare, and you still only have a 10% chance of being successful.
Yeah.
So it's a rough game, but also the preparation itself is enjoyable, right? It's enjoyable to go and put some arrows downrange, and you don't have to go shoot 100 arrows, but if you go shoot, your whatever you're doing, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, and back down to 40, like that takes 40 minutes. Okay. You're good to go. You feel good. And then you go for a ruck because, you might be packing out. Like all those things, they're enjoyable as well. It's not like they're a net negative on your life. They're all a net positive on your life.
For sure.
I've often said that about like firearms training. And people would say, well, what are the chances that you're actually going to shoot somebody? I hope the chances when you're a civilian, I hope the chances that you actually shoot somebody is 0. That's what I hope for. But the benefits that you get from shooting are not just, oh, you're going to be able to defend yourself. It's like, it's your muscle memory, it's your movement, it's clearing your mind, it's getting control of your breathing. There's all these other benefits that you get from it that are beneficial. Same thing with jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
You can go through life and not ever get into a street fight, which is great, but you still got all kinds of benefits from preparing for something that's never even going to happen, or hopefully never happens.
Mm-hmm.
So both training firearms and training martial arts, you're both training for something that you hope never happens. And with bow hunting, you're training for something you hope happens, but there's still almost, there's only a 10% chance that it's going to go down like that. I mean, I have so many friends that go out and they come back empty-handed. I've come back empty-handed. I've come back empty-handed from some of the best hunting spots in the world.
Yeah. It's
hard. Yeah, guess what? It didn't happen. And there you go. That's the way it goes. And I don't look at all the time that I spent in preparation as I wasted time. I don't think of that at all. I think that the entire journey of preparation is equally beneficial as the moment that you take the shot and you get a bolt. Like, they're all a huge positive in your life. And even if you trained and trained and trained year after year after year, season after season after season, and you never made it happen, made it happen, you would still benefit so many ways in your life that it'd be worthwhile.
I've used a ton of Bluetooth speakers over the years, and they all have never quite had enough output for me to really have an awesome home gym workout on a Bluetooth speaker. But the Turtle Box is in a whole new ball game. They have leveled up this product, so the bass and the output you get out of a Turtle Box is quite amazing. It's funny how we started using them at the lab. We had an awesome sound system at our new lab here in Bozeman. We were using it so much, we actually blew our brand new system out. We went right to the Turtle Boxes, and so we paired 2 together in the lab, and that was a lot of output for the Mountain Tough team and all of our testing to have phenomenal sound in our gym for a great workout with great music. We know there's a ton of Mountain Toughers training in their basements, in their garages, and I know a lot of you are looking for great sound to play some music in the background to your MGDs or your kettlebell diesel. This is a great product for you to check out. Turtle Box is at a whole new level. The bass and the volume you can get out of that box. It's a sweet product. You guys can check them out at turtleboxaudio.com. Again, that's turtleboxaudio.com. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. I love that you brought that up, and I think that is really important to talk about, and I wish people talked about it a little bit more because of media, social media content, YouTube content. New hunters, beginners, or people that are interested in diving into bow hunting elk, for sure, they can get a bad notion of what it actually is, because all the content that is out there is going to show success after success after success after success. But what none of the content is going to show you is the failure after failure after failure after failure, hundreds of failures to get to that one successful moment, just because that doesn't make good content. People will tell you that if you ask them that in person, but if you're watching some archery elk hunting content, the content that's going to make it on someone's channel a lot of the times is going to be a successful harvest of a bull. And so you can get a false idea that this is easy and it happens all the time. And then a beginner will go out thinking that it is easy, and they'll get a little disgruntled too fast. And I think it's just because the way they were set up with their expectations. I think the expectation should be that this is really, really, really hard. But because it is hard is what makes it so beautiful. And if you go 10 years without killing an elk with your bow, that is totally fine because of all these other amazing things that are going to happen. You're going to become a better outdoorsman. You're going to be outside. You're going to be training. You're going to meet a lot of amazing people. Knowing that it's going to be hard for 10 years would set people up a lot more for a successful path than a false conception that, hey, this is real easy. Because if it was easy, it wouldn't be any fun anyways.
Yeah, yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I have friends that go hunting, and I know you do too, that go elk hunting and they never see an elk.
Mm-hmm.
Spend 8 days in the field and they never see an elk. Maybe they hear some, but they never actually lay their eyes on one. That is not abnormal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like I said, it's a rough game. It is a rough game. And you got to do it because you want to enjoy the whole process and the whole journey, and not just this one moment that is fleeting and you're lucky if you get it. And even when you get that shot, man, those elk are freaking badass.
Yeah.
And they are badass. And I've been very lucky. I've recovered all the elk that I've shot. I've shot 4 arrows at elk and I've got 4 bulls. And that's, again, I mean, the very first one I shot, I hit him and I hit him and thankfully got him. I hit him in the leg and got an artery, and we were able to track him and he bled out quickly. But that is, it's just luck.
Lucky.
And we tracked him in the field. This was me and Dudley. We tracked him in the field, and at this point, this is my first hunt. I thought I was the biggest loser in the world. Like, I thought I was just, that this never happened. And I got back to camp and we hadn't recovered it. We left, we marked where we left off and get back to camp. And actually I was talking to Cam Haines and Joe Rogan, and, Cam was like, he basically just started telling me stories of shots that he had taken and, never recovering, blowing shots. And I'm thinking, this is Cam, this is Cam Haines, he's like as good as they get.
Yeah.
And he told me about, he shot this animal and blew the shot. He was only not, 19 yards away. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh. And Joe's the same thing, like telling stories of, oh, I thought I took the perfect shot and it hit back and we didn't fight. It's crazy how hard it is. And like I said, very lucky. And I had great, when you have someone tracking like Dudley and we a guide out there helping us, that's impressive because, tracking that blood is a skill in its own right.
For sure.
But so I got very lucky, very, very lucky on that first elk. And, it also made me realize, okay, well, you need to get a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was. And I just kept training and have been very fortunate with, all the other shots I've taken have been good shots. Kind of like where we all plan to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
But even hitting one of those in Colorado, I mean, my guide looked at me like, so pumped, perfect shot, quartering away. Oh, just 53 yards. Like, oh, this is, give it an hour and we'll walk in there and we'll be out of here in, a few hours. 24 hours of tracking before we find it.
Full day.
Yep. And again, it was a little bit back, but it was a pretty good freaking shot. Like anyone that watched that shot would have said, oh, you're good job.
Yeah.
And here it was, we had to track that thing for 24 hours. Yeah, this is a freaking hard game, a very hard game to play. And again, like you said, that's why it's rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing something that's very difficult, and to everyone that's on this path, everyone that's going out there, making it happen, trying to make it happen. Like I meet someone that's a bow hunter, respect, because it is a freaking hard thing to try and get done for sure.
Well, in the backcountry, the mountains, they teach you, they highlight so many life principles in a short amount of time. So if you're going on a elk hunt for 5 days, the amount of life principles that are highlighted in those 5 days that are the same principles you need to use in the rest of your life become pretty apparent. I mean, there's the failure and just learning to brush that off, bounce back, and start moving forward so that you're not just sitting there in your failure and not doing anything. And then you're overcoming adversity every morning, every night, every afternoon. And then there's the whole mental side of staying in the game, not quitting till the end, not coming home early. There's all these amazing things that are getting shrunk down in this short amount of time. And it's just highlighting these principles that they're going to help at business. They're going to help at being a dad, a husband. All these same principles are showing up. And I remember in 2019, I drew a Montana mountain goat tag, which is really difficult for a Montana resident. It took me 24 years of applying to draw that tag. And the year I got it, ironically, in the unit for that tag, it started dumping snow early in that unit. And so you hunt mountain goats in October. And in October, in that unit, the unit had 333% above average snowpack. So it was just a fluke that year. We had like January snow in October in this unit. And we hunted mountain goats we looked for that goat for 17 days. So we didn't find a mature billy. I was really focused on a mature, like 9-year-old billy. And we didn't find one until we found the one that I shot on day 17. So we saw some females, but we never saw a mature billy till we found the one I shot. So 17 days of trudging along in that 333% snowpack. We were trying to go in on skis and camping out in that snow. But that was one of the most difficult hunts, but it's my favorite and best hunt. And that's like life. Like things that are hard and things that you have to put a lot of effort in are the best. Like the hardest challenges are the best. They're the ones you remember the most rewarding, the most satisfying. So hunting is really doing some pretty special things.
Yeah, yeah, there's no doubt about that. And that right there, 17 days of every day is kind of a gut check.
Mm-hmm.
Every day is kind of a gut check. And we're just going, we're going to go again. And we didn't see anything. We're going to go again. We didn't see anything. We're going to go again. And what's really crazy is how fast everything can turn around.
Yeah.
Because you cannot see anything. On this whitetail hunt I did, I had an opportunity within an hour of being there on a pretty nice buck. And I didn't take the shot. And then I was pretty much nothing. We'd see deer, but we wouldn't see like any shooters for another 4 days. And this is on a 5-day it was 5-day or 6-day hunt. And it wasn't until the 5th day. So all these days, and now you start seeing the end creeping up and you're thinking, I'm not even gonna get anything. Like I had a chance and I didn't take it. I'll never let that happen again. I'm an idiot. And then whatever, the sun's about to go down and you're thinking about what's going to be for dinner. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in 1 minute, the whole thing's over because a buck comes out, walks straight in, and, boom, shot's taken. We're done. But, that's after 5 days of sitting there and 5 days of not thinking, oh, my opportunity is coming. My attitude is like, I already missed my opportunity. Like I blew it. And so 5 days of suffering and thinking you blew it. And then all of a sudden everything changes in 1 minute and 30 seconds. It's all different. You won. So it's an emotional roller coaster for sure. And same thing with, with that elk we had to track in Colorado. You're thinking, you go back to camp and you're like, well, I blew it. I'm a loser. This sucks. What did I do wrong? I thought I hit it good. What mistake did I make? You're just second guessing yourself. Can't sleep. Don't want to eat dinner. Go out the next morning, pick up that blood, and you're like, well, oh, wait. Oh, go freaking 20 yards with no blood and find a little speck. Oh, now we're back on it. And next thing you know, you're on some good blood and you find it. And celebration.
Yeah.
But serious emotional roller coaster. Very, very serious emotional roller coaster.
It's very emotional, yeah. And it's very consistent that the best bow hunters in the world, one of their key characteristics is they never quit. So there's so many days they don't want to go out, but they just go because they know that at any second it could happen. And so a lot of the legends kill animals in the last 10 minutes of the last day all the time, because they're gonna push that candle all the way to the end before they're coming home, and they just won't back down.
Yeah, that definitely has to be the attitude, because yeah, as you and I both have stated, everything can change in 3 minutes. But how fast does how fast does an elk move, right? It seems like they're breaking the laws of nature, how fast they go from one area to another. So your whole situation can change in 3 minutes. And if you weren't there, you didn't get out to that ridge line, or you didn't push a little bit further that day, it's not happening. And so yeah, you gotta stick with it no matter what. No doubt about it.
For sure. Well, Jocko, I want to transition here with our remaining time in chat about a different topic. I know that a big purpose in life for you that you've articulated is helping people. And that is similar to mine, and it's similar to Mountain Tough's mission. Our mission for sure is helping people with life transformation and helping people live a more abundant and virtuous life. And I want to connect that just in our final kind of 10 minutes here around being better dads and what we can do to be better dads. And I know you have 4 kids. I have 2 daughters. My daughters are 11 and 9. And so I'm always thinking about it from the perspective of what can I do to make sure I'm raising independent kids? What can I do to make sure I'm raising mentally tough kids, physically fit kids, hardworking kids? Anything I can do, I'm always looking to mentors and advisors around kind of that topic. And so I just kind of wanted to, feel that out with you and see what you've done that has worked, what you've done that hasn't worked, what your thoughts are there around fatherhood.
A few topics here, and yeah, I've definitely, I've got older kids now. They're, in their 20s, and 3 of them are in their 20s, and one of them is a bit younger. My youngest daughter's 14, and definitely it's the best thing having kids. And I think of the lessons that I've learned, which I've learned a lot of them about kids, is the primary thing is that they really are the leadership principles from having a business or leading a team or a platoon or a company. The leadership principles that apply there apply to your kids as well. What makes it difficult with your kids is that you're more emotionally attached and connected to them. And so you really think that you know what's best for them, and you really want to impose that on them. And that is not the best plan. The best plan is, just like with someone that works for you, is to give them as much ownership as you can. Allow them to pick the path, allow them to decide how they're going to do things. And the minute, I often say, what's your favorite thing to eat? And someone will say, whatever, pizza. Well, if I forced pizza down your throat, how would it taste?
Not good.
It wouldn't taste good at all. You'd throw it up. I don't care if it's ice cream. If I force feed you ice cream, eventually you're going to throw it up and you're going to hate it.
Mm-hmm.
So when we try and impose things on people, they'll end up with the same attitude. And it's the same thing with your kids. And I saw this a lot with jiu-jitsu in my family. So when I was, being so dedicated and also recognizing how good jiu-jitsu is for people, I of course wanted my kids to be heavily engaged in jiu-jitsu. So when they were younger, they were training jiu-jitsu by my direction 7 days a week. So like Saturdays and Sundays, my kids were at my gym for 5 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing jiu-jitsu, they were doing striking, they do the little kids class, they do the big kids class, they do competitions. And when I put them in competitions and even in practice, I would make them go with the older kid, the better kid, the stronger kid, the heavier kid. And in my mind, I think I'm just making them better and tougher. But what I actually did was make them think maybe they weren't that good at it. Maybe they didn't like this because they're getting beat up by people that are bigger and stronger than them.
Mm.
And my kids, so I got 3 daughters and 1 son, and this was really the story with my 3 older kids. So my daughters, who are the oldest 2, by the time they're, 9 and 11 or something like that, or 10 and 12, they're just full on don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And my reaction to that was to push even harder. Like, no, you will do this. And it took me a few months to say to myself, oh, I'm actually making them hate this.
Mm.
And what I did at that point was like, okay, I just backed off. And luckily, my son, he never stopped and he was always training. And I guess I held the line a little bit more than him, but he also wasn't quite as, he wasn't quite as, he didn't reject it as much. Because he had a couple buddies and they all did it together and they would hang out at the gym and it would be all fun.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I had to back off and I recognized like, okay, you're being an idiot. I'm being an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I backed off and it's been great. All my, my 2 older daughters, they both, found their way back to jiu-jitsu. My middle daughter, Rana, she's like, competition, she competes all the time. She's doing outstanding in competition.
Mm.
My oldest daughter, she trains every day. Like everyone's into jiu-jitsu in my family, including my youngest daughter. So my lesson from that is don't try and ram things down your kids' throats. Let them try it. And look, if you got to say, hey, listen, here's what I tell people now. My kid doesn't want to train jiu-jitsu. Okay. You just say to your kid, listen, if you don't want to train, that's fine. We just got to do two days a week just to make sure that you can defend yourself. And that's it.
Yeah.
Just like you got to brush your teeth every day. So you have teeth, you got to train twice a week. You don't have to train any more than that. You don't have to compete, but twice a week, you're going to go in there just so you know how to defend yourself. I'm not always going to be there. I want you to be able to take care of yourself. That's kind of the minimum standard.
Yeah.
And you do that with everything, right? Okay. You hate working out. Okay, fine. You know what? Every Saturday, no matter what, we're going to do a 2-mile run. Like you don't have to do anything else, but on Saturdays, just to make sure you're healthy, you got to do as many pull-ups as you can, and you got to go on a 2-mile run with me. Yeah. And that's it. That's it. You don't have to do anything else, but that's the minimum standard. That's just to make sure you're healthy and good, and you can pull yourself up out of a bad situation if you're in one, and you can run away if you need to run away. That's it. So you can kind of talk about things in a way where you give them sort of some minimum standards and then say, yep, that's all you want to do. That's all you got to do. And that will allow them to see the benefits and allow them to kind of keep that level there. So when they get older and they do realize the true power of fitness and the true power of jiu-jitsu and the true power of, archery, and when they realize it for themselves, they go, oh yeah. And they got enough skill,
mm-hmm.
It's real easy for you. Like, hey, this is our business. Our business is working out and shooting archery. So if you don't want to shoot archery, if you hate it, that's fine. All you have to do is like on Wednesdays, you got to shoot 10 arrows. That's it.
Stay
you
sharp.
You don't have to do anything else. Just 10 hours on 10 arrows on Wednesdays. I'll be out there. We'll shoot 10 arrows and then you can go do whatever you want. That's just the minimum standard because this is kind of what we do. And having that attitude and not thinking that you're going to make your kids aren't going to be who you want them to be.
Mm.
They're going to be who they want to be. And so you got to give them some room to grow and become who they are, not who you want them to be.
Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNTOUGH to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. Man, that's really good advice. I love the concept of still including it, though, a couple days a week, because it is really common. And for sure, I've gone through it where you want to push too hard and shove things down their throat. Like my oldest daughter, I pushed hunting pretty dang hard, and she showed an interest for it early, and then we pushed that pretty hard, and she kind of backed off, and I was like, dang it. And then, but the idea of keeping it around once or twice a week like that is really wise, because then they can kind of fall in love with it on their own, instead of, if you back off entirely, then it's just not around anymore.
Yep. It seems, and I've told a lot of parents this, and I've gotten feedback that's kind of a good methodology. People want to have control over their own destinies, right? Even a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 10-year-old kid, when we can try and control people, there's actually a term for it. It's called psychological reactance. People push back. When you try and impose things on people, people naturally push back. So when you give them the opportunity and you say, look, I know you don't really like hunting. That's fine. But just to make sure that you know how to work a bow, because this is kind of what we do in our family. This is kind of our business. Just so you know about it, just, on Wednesdays, like that simple thing. And it gives them control over every other day of the week.
Yeah.
It gives them control over 6 days a week and 23 hours, 23 and a half hours. It's still all theirs. And you still get them. Let's face it. If you're shooting a bow as a 10-year-old, once a week, by the time you're 14, you're going to be dialed.
Yeah.
You're going to be dialed.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, is people think that their kids, if they don't have their kids getting their 10,000 hours of practice by the time they're 9, I've seen it over and over again. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what matters is having the passion. You can't impose, you can't manufacture a champion. You can't do it. You can manufacture maybe a regional champion in wrestling. You can make your kid, if you just dictate your kid's life, you can make them like a regional champion in wrestling. Or maybe if you're even more tyrannical, you can make a state champion. That's unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
Unless that kid, and you're definitely not going to make a someone that's going to go to college and excel. That kid has to have that passion. That kid has to say, I want to be the state champion. Not, I want to keep my dad happy by being the state champion. Tony Hawk, the skateboarder.
Yeah.
He would just, his dad would say, Tony, we have to go home. It's 9 o'clock at night. You have school tomorrow. And he'd say, Dad, let me just land this trick 2 more times. Please. It won't take me more than an hour. That wasn't his dad. That was him. That was him. He wanted to get that skill. And that's where the true champions come from. But you got to let that desire develop in your kids. You can plant the seeds, and that's what that 10 minutes of shooting on Wednesdays, that's seeds being planted and put a little water on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just put a little water on it, just keeping it fresh, keeping the soil nutrients in there, and not trying to take that seed and pull it out of there. You try and pull that seed out of there, you're going to kill it.
Yeah.
You're going to kill it. Don't try and pull that seed out. Let it grow. Give it water and give it some sun. Give it the nutrients, but let it grow on its own. Don't try and yank that thing out of there. You'll kill it.
That's good advice. Yeah. And knowing that going in is so helpful, because otherwise you just want to push what you're passionate about down to your kids instead of pouring gas on what they're most passionate about. I mean, that's definitely helped me, is figuring out what my kids are passionate about. And kids are wired so different, like same household, same parents, same socioeconomic factors, but they're complete opposites in so many ways. So just figuring out what they are gifted at, called to, interested in, and just pouring a lot of gas on that.
Mm-hmm. What are your kids into?
My oldest is really into rodeo and horse stuff, which is amazing.
Thank God.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yep. It's awesome.
And then
what about your next one?
My youngest, she is obsessed with gymnastics.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
Totally good to go. Like you got one that's on horses that's outstanding. Imagine what she's going to take away from that. Imagine the skills she's going to have. Imagine the responsibility that she's going to gain from that. It's just awesome. And then gymnastics, maybe the best foundational fitness that a human being can have is gymnastics. So you're good to go. Like you said, man, just keep putting water on that. And, at some point, one of my daughters was into gymnastics, and at a certain point it becomes a lot. And maybe your daughter will be like into it, and maybe she'll be like, okay, well, I want to try something else. Cool. Either way, you're good to go.
All those skills.
Yeah. All those skills, all that strength, all that balance. My daughter can still just jack a handstand and walk around the house on her hands, and she stopped doing gymnastics when she was probably 13, but she still has all, backflips, all those skills.
All those fundamentals.
By the way, they transfer really well into jiu-jitsu. My oldest daughter was a ballerina. How does Jocko have a daughter that's into ballerina? I don't know, but she got into ballet. And I'll tell you what, that is a hardcore discipline. It is hardcore. And she still is, she can still stand here talking to you and put her leg up, up here with the strength and flexibility that you get into your system doing ballet for, she did it for, I don't know, 12 years or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And guess what? Guess what that applies really well to? Jiu-Jitsu. Like you have the strength, you have the flexibility, you have the body awareness. So all those things are just good to go. And your daughter that's riding horses, outstanding. Great. And your daughter that's doing gymnastics, love it.
Man,
you're good.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, Jocko, and we'll end on that note. And I really appreciate you. I appreciate everything you're doing and have done. I've followed your content for a long time, and I love that, your purpose is helping other people, and you've certainly helped a tremendous amount of people, and I'm sure you will continue to do that as well. And we're certainly proud of you, and it's amazing, how many people you've helped.
Well, thanks, man. And I see the same thing in what you're doing, introducing people to hunting and then help them be physically ready for hunting, which is going to make them physically ready for life. It's outstanding.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate you. Have an awesome day.
Right on, man. Back at you.
Thank
you.
you.
I'll see you up in Montana at some point.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. Man, thanks for listening, everyone. What a phenomenal conversation with Jocko. Really cool to hear about his newfound passion for bow hunting and how serious he is taking that. Like everything in his life, he's approaching that with a very serious, disciplined manner. You can hear in his words how the technical skills of bow hunting matter to him. He wants to be a proficient hunter. He's going to train. He's going to be physically, mentally ready, but he's going to be tactically ready. He's going to know his bow. He's going to know how it shoots before he enters the woods this fall. Really cool to hear how that has transformed him as an adult onset hunter. That's awesome that he's been introduced to that and is getting out in the hills now. But the golden nugget that I loved the most from today's conversation that I want you guys to hold on to is that golden parenting conversation at the end. Jocko talks about our kids, and our kids are all going to rebel if we push things that we're passionate about too hard on them. We don't want to push things down their throat just because we love them, because they will automatically rebel on those things. And he gave some phenomenal advice there at the end, that we don't want them to not be exposed to it, like hunting, archery, jiu-jitsu, for example, but we have to make it so that there's not so much pressure. So he brought up the example of, hey, you need to shoot 10 arrows every Wednesday because our family hunts. So you're not pushing archery 5 days a week, 7 days a week. You're exposing them, you're teaching them that skill, and you're setting up the environment where it's up to them if they want to fall in love with that skill or not, but they have it and they're not pushed completely away from it. That was great advice that I'll certainly apply in my household. A really good nugget there at the end from Jocko. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. If you want to learn more about Jocko, check him out on Instagram or on his YouTube. His YouTube is loaded with world-class mental toughness content. His YouTube is at Jocko Podcast Official. So make sure you check that out. I love you guys. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. We'll see you next week.